Okay, KBEAR Ink, and here's what I think of these IEMs. I think they are great bass head IEMs, and if you like bass a lot, this IEM is for you. Hi guys, my name is Ian, and thank you for clicking on this video. I do mostly audio reviews, and if you guys like this type of content, do consider to subscribe to my channel and click on the bell so that you get notified of my future videos. Right, KBEAR Ink, $69 US, and what you get in the box is a lot. Alright, so $69 US is really worth it, and I'll just go through all the different accessories that comes with it. So this is the box, very nice box, I might say. On the back you get the specs of the IEM itself. The impedance is 16 ohms, sensitivity is 102, it's 20 to 20,000 hertz in terms of frequency response, and it comes with a cable. Very nice box. Let's put the box one side. And these are the accessories that it comes with. It comes with a very nice case, and this is leather case, synthetic leather. It's not a real leather, but it feels nice to the touch. And on the inside is nice and felt. It's got a nice felt inside. Comes with a whole bunch of ear tips. Okay, now you have two types of ear tips. Let's pick it out. You have the wide bore and the narrow bore. So these are the two types of ear tips that you will get. The narrow bore ones are my favorite. They're a little bit taller than the wide bore, as you can see. And the wide bore, if you like treble a lot, then you should use the wide bore tips. But if you like bass and you want more bass, then you should use the narrow bore ear tips, right? So it's up to you to choose. And it comes with 8 different sets of ear tips. For the wide bore, you get 3 different sizes. For the narrow bore, you get 5 different tips, but 3 different sizes. Okay, so those are the ear tips. And the case, you do get a cleaning brush that you can brush off the nozzle of the IEM, right? So okay, and you do get a cleaning cloth, right, and some paperwork. Right, so let's put these one side. Let's talk about the cable. I like the cable. Cable is a 8-core cable. It's got a glossy look to the cable, and the 3.5 headphone jack is a straight type headphone jack, and the Y splitter is made of metal as well. It's got the chin slider, which is also made of metal. So chin slider is okay. The cable doesn't create any microphonics, so it's good. It's nice and thick, and it doesn't tangle up very easily. So it's a very good cable. As you can see, it untangles itself pretty nicely. It's got memory ear hook, and the memory ear hook is quite stiff and quite hard and sturdy, so it holds on to the IEM very sturdily. The IEM itself, okay, it's got a 2-pin connector, so you can easily swap out your IEMs or your cables. This IEM is entirely made out of metal except for the faceplate. You have got acrylic faceplate with a nice polished finish. It's got the KBEAR logo in front, and on the design itself, inside the faceplate, you do get a honeycomb type of a design on the inside, and you can see the inside shell is entirely made of metal, as I mentioned. The nozzle is made of a different component as inserted into the cavity itself. The nozzle, I think, is made of brass, if I'm not wrong. Someone please correct me if I'm wrong. The nozzle is quite wide in terms of the nozzle. The filter is made of metal mesh, alright, and that's about it. The entire IEM feels very premium. It's got some weight to it, pretty hefty, and it feels premium to the touch. Alright, it's got a nice metal feel to it. So the entire package, as you can see, is really value for money. $69 US for all these. You get all these. So if you are interested, do check out the link down in the description below. Okay, so let's talk about the fit and comfort. I find that the fit and comfort is okay, and I prefer to use the narrow bore ear tips, and because it's got a deeper reach to my ear canal, as you can see, the angle of the nozzle is pretty angled. Okay, it will suit some people. Some angle of it is, but this angle is a pretty acute angle, so it may not fit some people's ear canal, but most of the ear canals it should be able to fit. And also the angle of this ear hook is supposed to be hooked this way. So one thing I noticed is that this part here, it touches onto the outer side of my ear, and so in terms of fatigue, I do get a little bit of fatigue and pain when it's pressing onto my outer side of my ear. So I do need to adjust it every once in a while. Okay, but other than that, the fit is okay. The fit is pretty good, pretty nice. Okay, so now let's talk about the sound. So for that, let me take out my graph and we talk about the sound. Okay, so as you can see, this is a V-shaped tuned IEM, and the bass is emphasized, the treble is emphasized, that's why it's a V shape. The mids is a little bit recessed. As you can see, according to my graph and comparing to the Harman target, the bass is quite elevated compared to what people generally like to listen to in terms of the Harman target. Then the mid bass is also elevated. Okay, so let's just go to the sub bass. So this region here, as you can see, there's a lot of difference elevation. The sub bass is really rumbly, extends really far, and there's the roll off of this rumble is really good. Just to compare, I show you the blonde BL03. Okay, so you can see the roll off of the blonde is quite short. Okay, you can see that it does not extend and it rolls off. But as for the ink will continue, and it continues beyond 20 hertz. So in terms of the roll off, is pretty good. For the mid bass, okay, let's take a look at the mid bass. Okay, so mid bass is quite punchy. Right, it's got impact as well. So let's just turn it off. So it's a very impactful mid bass, quite a lot. Okay, as compared to the Harman target. For the mid bass, I would say there's a lot of impact to it. You can feel the vibration of the mid bass when the impact comes on the outer ear of your ear, and I can feel that. So for me, the quantity of the mid bass and the sub bass put together is a very bassy IEM, and you can feel that bass. So for those bass heads who love bass, this IEM is right in your alley. But one thing I want to say is that the mid bass is impactful and it's got the rumble, but it's not that type whereby it's bloated. Okay, it's well controlled as well. It is a type of a clinical and analytical type of bass. So it's a clean bass. It's not those bloated bass whereby you get on some other IEMs. But for this one, I would say the bass, in terms of the sub bass and the mid bass, is well implemented. I will compare a few IEMs later to show you the implementation of the sub bass and the mid bass as compared to other IEMs. Okay, so let's talk about the mids. The mids is recessed. Okay, so mids is recessed, not for the lower mids. So lower mids and the mid bass, they do transient pretty good. If you talk about the lower mids, you have your male vocals, you have your drums, you have a few other instruments like the pianos in this region. So in this region, you can feel the male vocals presence, you can also feel the drums presence and the piano's presence. They do sound forward. The tone and the timbre of these instruments, they sound natural to neutral. They don't sound warm. not really warmish, okay, type of sound. Even for the sub bass and the mid bass, I would feel that the sound and the tone and the timbre of it sounds a little bit on the neutral to natural sound. So you can feel that the bass is not those very warm, heavy bass that you will feel on some other IEMs, and this one will feel more of a lighter sub bass and a lighter mid bass, but you can feel the impact and that rumble at the same time. So it's not bloated, so it doesn't feel bloated in my sense. Okay, so for the mids, right, you will get that type of mids whereby it's a little bit recessed for certain instruments, at the same time a bit forward for certain instruments like the drums and the pianos. Violins will feel a little bit recessed, trumpets will feel a bit forward. So it depends on what type of instruments you listen to. For the mids, it's recessed in general. So for the vocals, as I mentioned, the male vocal, they do sound forward. Its note weight is a little bit light, as I mentioned before, but they sound authoritative. They've got this presence in the mix itself. So I feel that it's okay for the male vocals, and it's just nice for certain tracks, because for those male vocals who doesn't have that deep rumble, especially if they have that really high pitch voice, then they do sound a little bit laid back, a little bit veiled by the bass itself. For female vocals, okay, female vocals, they sound bright, and they do sparkle on certain tracks, and also certain female vocals also. For Diana Krall and some other low octave female singers, they do sound authoritative in the mix, but for people like Mariah Carey, Lady Gaga, they do sound bright and they sparkle. Okay, those Japanese female vocals also, they do sound bright on these IEMs. Okay, so that's for vocals. Let's talk about the treble. So for treble, as I mentioned, it's bright. All right, so it's bright type of IEM. At the same time, it's coupled with the bass. So you have your bassy and your brighty. Okay, I don't know if that is a right description, but you got your bass and your treble, and that added together, you feel that your mids is a bit recessed. Okay, so instruments wise, you feel on a whole that is a bit laid back. Okay, but overall, the cymbal strikes, they sound nice and bright. Electric guitars, they sound very energetic. Female vocals with the high octaves, they sound nice and sparkly, and they do shine in this IEM. Okay, so I would say the treble is nicely done in terms of the roll off of the treble. Is extended, pretty extended, and it's well controlled. So treble wise, I would say it's a pretty good graph. Okay, it's shouty on certain parts here. Okay, around here you feel that some female vocals may be a bit shouty, but other than that, there's no sibilance. The harshness is okay, it's not too harsh. For some Japanese songs, they do sound energetic, very in your face, but other than that, if you are listening to normal pop and those hard rock and heavy metal, EDM, this treble is pretty okay. So that's the overall tuning of this IEM. Let's compare this with some IEMs that I've measured. For example, the BL03. As you can see, as I've compared earlier, the BL03, the sub bass is a bit rolled off. Okay, and it's got more mid bass impact. But if you look at the treble, the ink has got a brighter treble as compared to the BL03. BL03 is a little bit dark. So when you listen to your track, you can feel that it's a bit, the treble is a bit muted and it's a bit dark. So you find that your track is more dimmer. okay, as compared to the KBEAR INK. So you will not feel that energy in certain tracks when you're listening to it when it comes to the treble. Okay, let's compare some other Bassy IEMs which I have. Okay, so for example, the KZ DQ6S. Okay, let me just change the color. So the KZ DQ6S is the green color line, and the blue color line is the KBEAR INK. As you can see, the bass, sub bass, and the mid bass is almost similar, but in terms of your mids, is almost similar as well. But the overall treble, okay, so treble wise, as you can see, it's a bit more darker as compared to the KBEAR INK. So KBEAR INK is still brighter than the DQ6S. At the same time, the overall tonality and timbre of the DQ6S is warmer. So you can feel that because it's warmer, you can feel that the track sounds a bit more soothing, less fatiguing to listen to as compared to the INK. But I would say INK, as I mentioned, is tonality is more neutral to natural sounding. So you feel that bass but in a natural tone. Now comparing to the KZ ZAS, as you can see, ZAS is one of KZ's bassiest IEM. As you can see, the INK has just the same amount of bass as compared to the ZAS in terms of the mid bass and the sub bass. But if you take a look at the mids, it's almost similar. But if you take a look at the treble, okay, treble wise, the ZAS is darker in terms of the treble as compared to the INK. So again, INK is pretty bright for an IEM as compared to the ZAS. Okay, but overall, as I mentioned, ZAS is also a bit warm in terms of the tone and the timbre. So the INK sounds natural to neutral type of tuning. I find that the ZAS has got a more soothing treble and darker treble as compared to the INK. Okay, so moving on, we compare the ZAS and the KBEAR INK. So for this one, as you can see, the bass is more than the ZAS, right? So the bass is got more, and also the mid bass as well. And the roll off for the mid bass is pretty similar. It's just that it's got more mid bass. But the treble, again, so look at the treble, right? So the treble for the INK, again, it's got more treble and it's got a brighter treble than compared to the ZAS. So okay, so with all these few IEMs that has been compared, I think you get the general idea that the treble of the INK is nicely implemented. It doesn't sound dark and recessed type of treble. So you do get forward bass and forward treble on this IEM itself. Okay, so you get that energy at the same time that bass. So that added together, you do get a bright and bassy IEM. Okay, so SOUNDSTAGE. SOUNDSTAGE, I would say, is above average. It's not the best SOUNDSTAGE. It's got the width, a bit of the depth, right? And the imaging is pretty okay. For certain songs, you can tell the different location of the instruments itself. Vocals, they are more intimate, right? The entire SOUNDSTAGE do sound a bit more intimate, and then the imaging, they are quite okay. You can pinpoint the location of the instruments itself, whether it's on the left or the right, or whether it's transiting from the left to the right. So imaging is pretty okay. It's just that sometimes on busier tracks, the instruments do get a bit congested. So, but the sound separation is pretty okay. It's above average. For the detailed retrieval and resolution, I would say these are really good. You can actually tell the nuances and detect the nuances of the sound on certain tracks, and for resolution is pretty good as well. So for technicalities, I would say that for this IEM, it's above average. Okay, it's above average. It's not the best. Again, I say it's not the best, but it's above average, better than most of the IEMs out there. So overall, I feel that this IEM is more suitable for those songs with a lot of bass, and also with a lot of treble. So if you like listening to those EDM and hard rock type of songs with a lot of electric guitars and a lot of bass, and also for classical songs, if you like those instrumental songs with a lot of double bass, this IEM is pretty good for that as well. You can actually feel the rumble and the impact of the double bass, and you know, it's pretty present. But for instrumentals like violins, it depends. If it's a violin solo, then it's pretty good. But if it's in an orchestra, then the violins may sound a little bit recessed. Okay, but other than that, yeah, it's pretty okay. For the rock songs, I would feel that electric guitars do really stand out on these IEMs. Vocals, not so much. But the drums and the bass, they really do stand out on these IEMs. So for $69 US, this is a great IEM to get if you like this type of genre of music, and also it comes with a lot of accessories, and I really do appreciate that they give such a good case and a whole bunch of ear tips that you can play around with. For this price, which is $69 US, and it's really value for the money. Okay, so that concludes my review and my impressions of this KBEAR INK. If you do enjoy this video, please consider to give this video a thumbs up, and also don't forget to subscribe to my channel and click on the bell so that you get notified of my future videos. Alright, so that's it. Thank you so much for watching my video. I wish you guys a great day ahead, and I'll see you again in my next video. Peace.